stories that have got everybody talking today. Nick Ferrari and Camilla Tominey with their views, and well, all over the newspapers this interview by the Sussexes, which will air in about 2 or 3 weeks time, and Oprah Winfrey carrying this out. Camilla, let's go to you first of all.
Well, I suppose people are probably a bit shocked that a couple who left the royal family to protect their privacy and avoid scrutiny keep on having this habit of ending up in the front pages. And I think the Oprah interview is not that surprising, because it's been long talked that Meghan would like to kind of get her side of the story of Megxit over. The trouble is, I think the couple are going to face criticism for hypocrisy if on one hand they complain about newspapers invading their privacy, while on the other they're willing to speak about the intimate details of their exit from the royal family, which may in turn risk invading the privacy of their royal loved ones.
But it's not an interview, it's an ad, really, isn't it? I mean, Oprah's a mate. Oprah was at their wedding. What's her name? Meghan's mother stayed with Oprah at her home as a house guest. So it's not an interview as such, Camilla.
Well, I don't think Oprah is going to be throwing really difficult questions at Meghan. And admittedly, it's going to be hugely sympathetic because, as you say, they're friends. Although, interestingly, it's been pointed out that they'd only met once before Oprah turned up at the royal wedding in Windsor Castle in May 2018. But yes, I think it's going to be a soft soap kind of approach. And what's difficult for the royal family is because they adopt the Queen's mantra of never complain, never explain. I think Meghan's going to be able to say what she likes, and they're not really going to have a right of reply. We're not going to see the Queen do a sit down in response to any of this. And I think behind palace gates, people are a bit bewildered. They feel that they've moved on from Megxit. We've had the pandemic to deal with, the Queen giving her "we'll meet again" speech, the Cambridges, Charles and Camilla and everyone else all getting on with the day job. And they're wondering why Harry and Meghan are still sort of hanging on to this Megxit past when they were the ones who wanted to so-called find their freedom.
Well, Nick, what do you think? Why now? Why? I mean, they've announced, that they're expecting their second child, and now this. So why do you think so much publicity for them at the moment?
Exactly the point I was going to make, isn't it? 48, 72 hours after we heard the joyous news that they have another baby, noting, of course, that they had the heartache of the miscarriage, we have this. Look, not for the first time, as I witnessed Prince Harry, who's a young man I admire enormously. He was brave enough to put himself absolutely at the front line. He loved the military life. The blokes and women loved him. He had a great time. I just feel I almost want to put my arms around him, or I wish his mother, Princess Diana, was still around. I see a young man who's clearly in love with a very beautiful young woman, but I think he's just so conflicted about what he should do. I read Camilla's analysis of all of this in the Daily Telegraph today, and she rightly, and I thought of this as well, and I'm sure Eamonn, Ruth, you did too, it's not as if there aren't precedents here. TV history is littered with past interviews where members of the royal family have fared particularly badly. I have to point, sadly, even to Harry's own mum or his uncle back in 2019, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, with a BBC journalist. So I cannot see why he's doing it. I think in some ways, I'm sure he's in love. I'm sure they have a great union. I just think he misses his mum, and at times he doesn't have that listening post that we all need.
Could one of the reasons they're doing it, I don't know the answer to this, Camilla, is this a paid interview? Because unlike the interviews that Nick mentioned there, those would not have been paid. Would this be a money maker?
I don't know about the commercial intentions behind it, but we do know that Oprah and Meghan have linked up over this coffee brand. But this is mainly the Meghan show, let's be honest. They've already filmed it and it's 90 minutes long. And it's billed as Meghan talking about Megxit and family and marriage and the royals. And then Harry comes in at the kind of last minute to talk about their lives in America and their future. And I think they've done it that way because, of course, it's more compromising for Harry. He's the one at the end of the day that's going to be coming back to the UK and seeing his relatives. I think people have concluded that the Duchess has always had her eye on the American prize and probably isn't likely to come back here again too often. I mean, that suggestion some years ago that she was going to seek dual citizenship, I think that's been quietly abandoned. And America is very much her focus. And who better to concentrate her focus on than Oprah, the chat show queen?
You're talking about their future there. I mean, there's rumour that they could be set to lose their remaining royal patronages. Some people still saying they should be stripped of their royal titles. What are you hearing about that, Camilla?
Well, I think the suggestions are that it's not going to go down very well behind palace gates for them to be A, kind of airing very personal and intimate details about Megxit, which all of the royals think that they've moved on from, and B, to try and coincide this royal role with this commercialization, and signing 6-7-figure Netflix and Spotify deals doesn't sit well with carrying out official duties. There's a blurring of the lines there. They've crossed the Rubicon now with this Oprah interview. I mean, ordinarily, I think the last royal that spoke to Oprah was the Duchess of York, and that was very much post-divorce when she was outside of the royal scene. So this is going to be regarded as muddying the waters, and I think that a lot of these patronages now are going to have to come to an end, not least because there are charities and military organisations here who probably would prefer to have royal patronages that are actually based in Britain rather than across the pond.
Talking about coming to an end, Nick, what are you hearing on your radio show from interviewees and listeners as regards lockdown? How encouraged are people? What are ministers saying? Are we nearing the beginning of life going back to normal or not? Much debate.
The light at the end of the tunnel is growing brighter. We have 24% of the population now vaccinated. To put that in terms of reference, the European Union average is 4%. So it's been a great success story for the men and women of the NHS, the men and women of the military. That's great. The next target is another million vaccinations a day, and to move to around 30 plus vaccinations by the end of April. Now, just very quickly, if your listeners are thinking, well, hold on a second, we got to 15 million in a matter of weeks, we now have to play catch up. So many of your people have had their first vaccination. They now need their second one, and it's all down to supply. Some days yesterday, or on the weekend, I'm sorry, they were vaccinating at the rate of 1,000 a minute. So to answer your question, yes, the end is in sight. Monday of next week, Boris Johnson lays out the route map. When will schools open? When will non-essential stores open? When will pubs and restaurants open? And this comes as the boss of JD Wetherspoon's made a very strong point today that if they don't open the pubs soon, millions, and he means millions of people, will lose their livelihood. So look for that route map Monday of next week, but obviously plenty of stories in between the two dates.